All right, to talk more about the Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition's visit to the South African Bureau of Standards, we're joined by SABC News reporter Katlego Legodi. Good afternoon, or rather good evening, Katlego. So the claims of a worrying state of affairs at the South African Bureau of Standards have been, or rather have seen member of the Portfolio Committee, Toby Chance, as we've seen there, taking a decision to visit them. Just talk to us about that visit.
A very good evening to you, Mfundo, and to our viewers at home. Of course, we were back at the SABS earlier on today with Member of Parliament Toby Chance. He is indeed concerned about the state of affairs at the SABS. Remember that this would not be the first time that we find ourselves there at the entity. We were there even earlier on in the year when there were just issues that were coming out of the entity, which saw Minister Katlego really come through to investigate and launch a forensic investigation. It was actually in February when he launched this forensic investigation after his office as well have been inundated with some of these whistleblowers and some of these allegations that have been leveled against management of the SABS. So at the crux of where we find ourselves here would be allegations that all of this mismanagement is still ongoing, as we see this investigation by TSU appointed by the Minister of Forensic Investigators as they are ongoing, as they are continuing with their investigations. We see that concerns coming through from members of parliament, even from the minister's office. You have there from the minister's spokesperson that they too have been getting all of these calls, have been getting all of these information coming through from whistleblowers that are saying that issues are moving from bad to worse. So earlier on today, we were there with the Member of Parliament, Toby Chance, who was there on an official, who was there on an oversight visit, who said that he wanted to basically just see what would be happening there at the entity, and that's when we found ourselves in Pretoria earlier on in the day.
And what did he say he found there?
So basically what happened is that there were two letters that he showed us. One would be from the minister's office. The other one would be from the entity itself, the SABS, the acting CEO, Lizo Makele. And both of these letters were calling on, for him to more or less just allow for the investigation to continue and not in any way move to jeopardize the work that is already underway. As we know, is that the minister has given TSU until the end of May, the 31st of May, to just go through with this investigation and then furnish the minister with a report that will more or less give him just an idea of how to move from here, looking at some of these things that were covered at the entity. So we saw him just ending his trip there outside, but saying that he was there to also raise awareness and also to just push the executives to know that all eyes are on them, as we hear from even workers there, that some of them are still facing suspension, some of them are still, more or less, the union is saying they're victimized by the management there. All of these are allegations that the management of the SABS have refuted.
This is honestly quite worrying, because this would really put at risk the testing of equipment and standards and certification. But what did he have to say around the lack of a permanent CEO in the past 4 years? Did he touch on that at all?
Most definitely. So one of the things that Minister Katlego committed to when he stepped into this office, this would be the DTIC. With that, he would actually work around stabilizing the entities. So it's not only the DTIC that is going through some of these challenges. So we find the NRCS going through challenges, CETA going through its own fair share of challenges, the national lotteries, they're going through their own challenges. And we saw him just saying that, he's moving to assess what has been happening throughout these entities, and the SABS was one of them. So it's concerning that we find ourselves without the CEO even to date, but we hear the minister even saying that this would be one of the issues that are on his agenda. So what we hear about the SABS is that they haven't had a CEO, a permanent CEO, for about 4 years, going into 5 years now. The CEOs that have been there, they've been in acting positions on a rotation base. As early as the 31st of March, that is when this CEO, the acting CEO, Lizo Makele's term came to an end. And they are just worried as members of parliament as to And then when there is no stability there at the top, that is how then we find all of these opportunity elements. And they're even worried about the losing of accreditation licenses, the laboratories that are not functioning well according to the whistleblowers. At the same time, we hear that they're all SARS, which is something that will still need to be confirmed here. But the workers saying that there's a restructuring process as well that has left them really high and dry, because even last month, they were not paid their salaries in full because of some of these restructuring processes that were introduced by this executive.
No, it's honestly very worrying. It's far too critical an entity to not have a CEO for the past 4 years, especially because if you're having all these CEOs on an acting basis, we know the limitations when you are acting in a position. There are certain decisions you cannot take. And then after that, that specific tenure is interrupted. There's a new person who must come in as per the law to act. And then it's another stop-start. So most certainly, I'm sure all of this has contributed to the instability. But Katlego, thank you very much for that reportage. That's SABC News reporter Katlego Legodi there speaking to us.